Unit 2, Lesson 8. What basic ideas about government are in the Declaration of Independence? By Sofia Lozano. Lesson Purpose. One of the most important documents in American history is the Declaration of Independence. It summarizes the colonists' basic ideas about government. The Declaration lists the colonies' complaints against the British government. The Declaration also explains the reasons why the colonies decided to declare their independence from Great Britain. Lesson Objective. When you finish the lesson, you should be able to explain the main ideas that are in the Declaration of Independence. Terms to understand: abolish, loyalists, natural law, patriots, self-evident, Tories, and unalienable rights.
Oh my god, Catherine, Biggie's gonna kill me. I don't even know what the Declaration of Independence is.
First of all, you're really Second of all, it's when the colonists sent a letter to the King of Great Britain declaring independence from Britain. Do you understand now for your tiny
Like, what about the colonists though? Like,
stop asking me so many questions. You're
goodbye!
Congress appointed a team of men and nations the Founding Fathers, which wrote the Declaration of Independence and its drafts. The final writer was Thomas Jefferson, which got most of his ideas from a philosopher named John Locke. Most of his main ideas believed in natural rights, which is the right to life, liberty, and property.
Why did the founders want a written declaration?
so they could keep some sort of record of it, and so they could have written or physical proof just in case Britain tried to take over again.
The Declaration was written in 4 parts so it would be easier to understand. The first part is ideals. It states the purpose of government based on the beliefs of the founders. The most important principle was that all men were created equal.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The second part of the Declaration is arguments. This section included the reasons why the colonists were justified for breaking away from the British government. The third section is labeled as complaints, which were the grievances against the British government. The complaints were also known as grievances, which were the ways in which the British government had ignored the colonists' rights when making decisions.
The main argument of the Declaration was that government had a responsibility to protect natural rights, and the King of England was not doing this.
The fourth and final part of the Declaration was the conclusion, which is the final statement of the colonies severing their ties with the British government. Going back to the first section of the Declaration, here are some of the founders' most important beliefs when it comes to government.
1. What does "we hold these truths to be self-evident" mean?
This means that something is so obvious that it does not need an explanation. We have already discussed the most important truth, that all men are created equally. The second thing I believe is self-evident is that everyone is born with unalienable rights, gifted by God according to founders' beliefs, and should not be taken away under any circumstances. As mentioned before, one of the most important principles of government is that all men are created equal. But what exactly does this mean? Clearly, we may weigh different, or be different heights, and have different talents and abilities. If we have so many differences, how can we be created equal?
Among the truths that Americans hold to be self-evident is that all men are created equal. But what did Thomas Jefferson mean by this statement? There are 2 ways that all men, meaning all people, might be created equal. One is that they are all, by birth or naturally, political equals. This means that no one is legitimately the ruler of others by birth, and no one is by birth the subject of a ruler. The other is that human equality goes deeper than just political equality. In this sense, all people are considered of equal value and worth, or equal in the eyes of God. All are created moral equals. In fact, Jefferson intended both of these senses of natural equality. Late in life, he stated that in composing the Declaration, he was not stating original principles or ideas of his own. Instead, his writing was intended to be an expression of the American mind. Both senses of natural human equality were common beliefs of colonial Americans in 1776.
Another principle from the natural rights philosophy is that all men are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, which are rights that cannot be taken away no matter what. Amongst these unalienable rights are the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. which were inspired by John Locke's ideas of life, liberty, and property, as earlier mentioned in the video. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But what exactly does this mean? A government should be created by the people and for the people. What I mean by this is that a government should be created to keep its people safe and happy. Governments deriving their powers from the consent of the governed basically means that the people give their government the consent to be ruled. Lastly, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. Basically, there's an agreement between the people and the government. Natural law states that there is no higher law than the one gifted to everyone by God.
If the government or any constitution violates this law, it is up to the people to stop this government and to issue a new one that won't violate the people's natural rights.
This is basically what the colonists did when they broke away from Great Britain. They had an agreement that the king could rule them as long as he protected their rights to life, liberty, and property. However, no agreement existed between the colonists and Parliament, so technically, Parliament did not have the right to govern them as it didn't allow the colonists to send representatives to Parliament.
The king had violated the contract he had with the colonists and was taking away their rights, so the colonists acted and declared independence from Great Britain.
What were some of the complaints against the king? There's a long list of grievances from the colonists to the king, and the first one is that he wouldn't approve of laws that were needed for the well-being of the colonists. Second of all, he continuously attempted to stop any legislature in the colonies. This was most likely because he didn't want the colonies to be powerful enough to sever their ties with him. He deprived the colonies of many things, including powers to the courts in the colonies, and not giving the colonists the right to trial by jury. He also cut off trade between other parts of the world except Great Britain, most likely so that the colonies would only purchase from them. The term consent of the governed comes back as the king imposes taxes on the colonies on things such as paper, sugar, and many other things, all without the consent of the colonists. Armies would remain standing even when things were peaceful around the colonies, which would lead to requiring the colonists to quarter British soldiers in their house. While most people were eager to claim their independence, there were still some that wanted to remain loyal to Great Britain.
Those who supported the war against George III in Britain were given the name Patriots. Patriots came from a wide array of social and economic backgrounds. Lawyers such as John Adams and Alexander Hamilton, planters like Thomas Jefferson and George Mason, merchants, farmers, and ordinary citizens all helped to bolster the rebellion. Opposing the efforts of the Patriots were the Loyalists, who supported the British monarchy. They were commonly referred to as Tories, and the largest number of Loyalists were found in the colonies of New York and New Jersey. Loyalists also made up a substantial portion of the population in North and South Carolina, where royal governors there attempted to recruit people to their side. Many chose to side with the king for reasons other than loyalty or fear of losing fortunes if trade markets were threatened. Many active Church of England or Anglican Church members remained loyalists throughout the war's entirety.
Now that we know all about the Declaration and its basic ideas, let's review the terms we mentioned in the beginning of the video. Abolish, to formally put an end to something. Loyalist, the colonists that wanted to remain loyal to Great Britain and the king. Natural law, a set of unchanging laws that, according to founders' beliefs, is the highest law made by God to govern humans. Patriots, the colonists who were all for the war against Great Britain and wanted to declare their independence. Self-evident, something that is so obvious that it does not need an explanation. Tories. Tories are basically another name for loyalists, who were the colonists that wanted to remain loyal to Great Britain. Unalienable rights. Rights that cannot be taken away no matter what. Those include the rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.